This is Let's Talk Teens, a parenting podcast sharing tips on raising amazing teenagers. We are both certified life coaches that have worked with teenagers as coaches, mentors, and teachers. We are sharing what we have found to work best when dealing with teens and tough issues. This is Abbi and Cheree, episode 77, The Difference Between Control and Influence in Parenting Your Teen.
I think this is just a needed topic for all of us when we're parenting because knowing the difference, as we parent our teens and even maybe young adults in this can completely change the relationship dynamic. Don't you think, Abby? Like just understanding control or influence. And I think most of us can honestly say what we want is influence. We want to have influence over our kids. We don't want control. Sometimes our fear brain goes into that control. We want control because it feels safe. But I think when we really ask ourselves at the end of the day, we want more influence. So let's talk about what control is and what influence is and the benefits of them and how we can do them, really. So let's start with control. So we know that when we're trying to control, we're coming from our fear brain. We're also trying to direct or force behavior through authority, rules or consequences, and it's again because there's something that we're wanting to achieve on that. It's usually something about us. This looks like, when our kid is like, why can't I go to the party? Well, because I said so. Or why do you care about my homework and and how I take tests? Because it matters. And we don't really talk about it. We just are trying to control it. Um, this is where we give punishment instead of consequences or compliance. It's just a punishment. Like you're grounded instead of beforehand being like, if, this is our family rule, if you can't break it, then there will be a consequence. A punishment is just a very reactive thing. Like you're punished because you didn't do as I wanted you to do. Control looks like forcing decisions without discussion. And I think this is the big one, is forcing decisions without discussing it. Have to remember our teens, they are learning to become an adult. They're learning to adult. And so it's so important involving them in a discussion and not just saying, this is how it is.
I was just thinking in my head popped up this image of like our teen is on a path and good parenting looks like we are the fence posts on either side of that path. But that path is pretty wide. And so our
Mhm.
teen can wander and meander. And that's where we're like, hey, I've got these fence posts to totally keep you safe and, help you guide because I think sometimes we shy away from being those fence posts and we don't want to do that. We want to have that influence. We want to definitely set up parameters to help them be safe mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. But then sometimes we start to go, "Oh, hey, don't do that. Don't go over this way. Don't swing your arms while you're walking, right? Don't do this." And all of a
Mm,
sudden we want to put like a little leash on our teenager and say, "I need you to walk exactly this way." When we got to remember, "Oh, wait, hey, if I've done this right and I've set up awesome family rules, they can have freedom of their personality." Like that's where I find that I'm like, this is a personality thing and not like oh, you're such a bad kid or you're falling off the path. It's like let them meander and they might meander and walk slower than you think that they should. They might go faster than you think that they should. You might wish that they weren't kicking up dust on their path, right? But I always have to check in with myself and go, "Oh, okay. Is this like a big deal? Oh, no, it's just annoying me." Okay, like I can check myself, right? Or
mm.
maybe this isn't the way I would do things, right? Maybe I wouldn't have signed up for that class, or I don't see the value in this. But hey, if it's safe, it's well in that path, then we're okay, right? And we don't have to have that control over every aspect of their life because we think we know what's best.
I couldn't love that visual more of the fence and the path. Like that is such a good visual, right? Because we do need rules. We do need, I call them non-negotiables to keep our kids safe and to teach them. But it's when we're telling them how to walk the path, and telling them don't get too close to that fence post or don't swing your arms. I love that visual because I think that's where we start to control. So what happens when we control as parents? How do our teens respond to that? Well, they push back. They hide, they don't tell us things, they keep secrets. Um, Maybe they comply, but it's just temporary. It's just so they don't get in trouble. It's not like a long lasting thing. And I think those are all things we want to really watch for because do we want our kids to just be obedient and, do what we want them to do with this control, just to look like they're obeying or look like they're complying. Um, I don't want my kid to comply temporarily, like
Mhm.
temporarily. Like I want them to understand and know the reason and to start to think about it. So that's where we're going to switch a little bit into influence. But do you have anything to add before we go to influence?
Yeah, I just wanted to share like some thoughts on control. And, you know, there's some things where you're like, well, I do know better, right? Like it is a good idea if they do this, but the scary part about trying to control our teen's life is that we can't control the consequences of that. And for a lot of our youth, if they feel like they don't have say and control in their life, then they will develop like eating disorders, or they will really start to push back on like what they wear or how they look, or they might harm their body
Hmm.
because that is one way they can show complete control and you can't stop them. Right. And
Hmm.
like that is at the heart of eating disorders and body dysmorphia and like these things where we are seeing the results of them feeling uber controlled sometimes. So I know that, it's hard not to. Like all the time I think, "Oh, that's not what I would do," right? Um,
Hmm.
but we don't want to push them into a zone where they feel like if I don't start controlling weirdly, like my food or what I wear or how I look, they
Or
feel
my habits, even like
yeah.
habits. Yeah.
Yeah, and what is it as human beings? Like you tell us what to do, we want to do the opposite. So
Hmm.
be so careful with that because if we do fall too far into this control, there are some serious negative consequences that kick back at us.
They really are. And it's interesting because we think subconsciously, maybe consciously, that if we control, that it'll keep them safe
It
and
will
they
be
won't do
better.
it
Yeah.
and it'll be better and they won't do the things that we worry about, but it actually pushes them further into doing the things that we worry about. So it's just good to like it. I think as a parent, it's just good to have an honest reflection of like, where am I putting too much control or where do I need to let go? Or even I love to ask myself like, okay, why do I want to control this? And there usually is some level of like fear and really be like, okay, I don't like that reason for this control. That's not really going to be helpful. And
Hmm.
really learn to let go of the things that I can't control because it's a thing I think I can control that I'm really not controlling as a parent. So, okay, then let's talk about influence and the difference in how much better influence is versus control. So influence, it guides behavior through relationships. It's that whole building trust and respect and really showing forth this love towards our teens that like, okay, I love you and this is why I'm going to teach you and invite you and show you, but it's out of love, not fear, right? It's out of trust and respect and being okay that they're going to figure it out. So one of my favorite things to think about is when we're thinking influence, instead of like setting up all these rules and be like, this is why, because I said so, it's asking questions instead of a lecture. It's saying, what do you think about this? Or what would you do in this situation? Or why do you think we have this rule of this curfew? Why do you think we want to have you um, study for this test? Like, why? It's asking them questions and letting them be reflective. It's also listening and understanding their perspective. And that doesn't mean you agree with their perspective, but understanding that they have a different way they see it. And that maybe sometimes theirs isn't wrong and yours isn't wrong, and yours isn't right and theirs isn't right. They're just different. They're just different perspectives. But understanding where they're coming from instead of um, being like, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. I think we do that very quickly. It's learning influence looks like sharing your wisdom instead of forcing compliance. So it's like, in
Yes.
my experience, or this is something I learned, this is something I've experienced, and maybe that'll be different for you, or maybe that's even something you have to learn on your own. But this is what I've learned. This is my experience with that. But go ahead and try, like sometimes it's like maybe you need to try that. Like maybe, in a previous episode we talked about sleep. So maybe in sharing this wisdom is like I've noticed that when I don't get enough sleep, I become like very emotional. That's what I've learned from my experience. Maybe you'll find that's different, but maybe you need to kind of test that theory out. Like maybe you need to see and notice how you feel when you don't get enough sleep. But it's
Hmm.
sharing wisdom without controlling or forcing compliance. I'm overly tired when I don't sleep, so you have to go to bed at this time. And, no, it's just saying, hey, this is what I've learned. And then also, I think it's collaborating on solutions. It's like, okay, here's some ideas. What are your ideas? How can we how can we address this? Your teen wants to change their curfew. It's like, okay, let's talk about some solutions, or let's bring stuff to the table of like what could work here.
I was just thinking that for me, influence is going from like control of a coach of you go out there and you do this play and I'm telling you what to do, right? Because I think this will help us win, to inviting your teen into that coaching circle and being like,
Mm,
okay, what do you think? Here's what I think from my point of view and my perspective. And then they get to share back, right? And I feel like when a teenager feels like they are on the same team as their parents, right? And that their parents are on their team, that we make better decisions all around. Like I make better decisions as a mom, they make better decisions as a teen out of their own intrinsic values, right? And the things that we've taught them as they play out. And I was thinking of like an example of like your teenage daughter's dating a boy that maybe you don't like, or at least you just don't like the way that he's treating her recently. They're doing very high school behavior of he likes this other girl, or he asked her to a dance and then this didn't work out, or those kind of things. The controlling version of that would be like, well, I don't want you to go with him. Like you say no, or you break up with them, or this. And what's frustrating and kind of terrifying with teenagers, you can't really make them do a lot of things. Like, yeah, you can tell your daughter to break up with this boy. She doesn't have to. She can tell you that she did. Like, like that is
mhm,
on her. And so a difference would be of influence of sitting her down and going, hey, can I tell you about when I was in high school and how I wish I would have, kicked this boy to the curb, but instead I put up with this behavior and he broke my heart like this and this and this, right? And it's not so much that I'm lecturing my daughter, but I'm just sharing with her, here's what I wish I knew at your age. And then we let her sit with that. And I think when we let teens, step into their own awesome power of making decisions, that they typically make the right decisions, right? Especially if we put those awesome fence posts where they're supposed to be. They can come to those conclusions on their own. And sometimes I have to remind myself and go, guess what? I was a total airhead when it came to dating boys, and I cannot believe all that. Like, I look back and I'm like, I should have kicked their butts, right? Like, there's just,
mhm,
but instead I was like, oh, I just love them more, right? But guess what? I grew up, I'm an adult, I'm just fine, right? Like, we all survive
mhm.
it. And I think
We
sometimes
all figure it out.
we all figure it out, right? And obviously, there's times we got to step in and save our teen when they're jumping past those guardrails. But for most of the time, we got to take a step back and go, they will figure this out. And this is hard. And I'm here to guide them and share my stories. But then if teen daughter's like, well, I'm still going to go to prom with him, we got to be like, okay,
Okay.
right? Like,
Yep.
let's go pick out your dress. Let's go help you with this. And that way, our daughter feels like we're on her team. It's not me and my boyfriend against my mom. It's me and my mom against life.
Exactly. And then here's the great thing is when we do those things, when we really, have that share our wisdom instead of forcing compliance, when we collaborate and find solutions, when we listen and understand, when we ask questions, all those things, this is what we get back from our team. They open up more. They are more honest with us. They feel safe in talking to us and sharing. Like that example, of the teen daughter who we don't want her to go to prom, but instead of telling her no, we're like, this is my experience. Then, and maybe she chooses to go. And then later she comes back and she's like, oh, that actually wasn't the best idea. This is what happened. But she's going to come back and talk to us about it because we didn't force her not to go. And she's going to gain so much wisdom from that experience and be open to sharing and talking through it. And then open to our other wisdom, maybe even more in the future because we held that space for her. Our teenagers start to ask for advice. They want our advice because we're not controlling and telling them what to do. We are we are in a sphere of influence.
Kind of a good check for parents is if you notice that your teen chronically, not just once or twice, because we all do this once or twice, but if your teen like chronically will make decisions, especially like big ones or rash ones, or like be like, oh, I signed up for all my classes, or like I just bought this or I sold this, or just bigger things like that without ever consulting you or doing it and telling you about it afterwards, that's a good indicator that they are feeling like if they were to come to you, your answer would be no. Um,
Mhm.
because they tend to just go, well, I'm not going to even ask my parents because I already know their answer is going to be no. And I'm not saying we've all done that and we all do that. But if we feel like I can ask my parents about this and they're not immediately going to condemn it or they're not immediately like they're going to hear me out. Your teen's far more likely to be like, "Hey mom and dad, what do you think about this?" So that's a really good internal check. If you're like, "My teen never like they're always doing these crazy things and then I find out about it later." That might be a good indicator that you're like, "Ooh, they might feel like my answer is always no or that I'm going to control them." And so that might be a conversation worth having.
Absolutely. I think that is such a good like reflective, like, okay, what's going on here? And do they talk to me about these things? Okay, I think they'll also consider your perspective, just making sure like they're going to listen to you more when you continue to have this influence. And then the last one is just they're going to internalize values instead of just being like obeying the rules. Which don't we want them to internalize the values and really think about what they want to believe and what they want instead of just, okay, I'm just going to obey my parents and obey the rules. And then as soon as I'm out of this house, they're all gone. Like I'm going to be a totally different human being.
Mm.
And I think that is something when we're in the sphere of influence, they are going to really think about the whys behind what they're doing instead of just these are just rules to obey while I'm under my parents' house.
I love that.
Some good things to think about. Just be curious about this. Where am I on the control versus influence? Where do I need to maybe change up a little bit? Where do I just need to have some good reflective time in how I parent? What again, little changes can go a long way. And remember that it doesn't change overnight. Maybe if we've been a very controlling parent and we start to change to influence, it's going to take time for our kids to trust us in that, but just to keep going and it will be worth it. And building that really strong relationship with your parents and changing the dynamic, it will be very worth it.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Teens with Cheree Murdock and Abbi Winslow. If you are looking for more tips to help your teenager, here's where you can find us. You can find Cheree Murdock on Instagram at Cheree Murdock Coaching or on her website, ChereeMurdock.com. You can find me, Abbi, on Instagram as Abbi Winslow or on my website, AbbiWinslow.com. Please rate and review our podcast and share with a fellow parent. Thanks for listening.